All right, well, thanks everyone for joining today's webinar. My name is Zane, NotAfraid. I work with Intertribal Ag Council. I'm the Rocky Mountain Technical Assistance Specialist. Kind of a mouthful, but basically just a technical assistance on the ground for you guys, the producers, to access these USDA programs. This will be the first one of its kind to be the Intertribal Quarterly Update with co-hosted with USDA Montana. Will be the first one, and we'll be doing these every 3 months, and we don't have the target date for the next one, hopefully this summer sometime, but we'll get that information to you guys. But I'll put my information in the drop in the chat here, so if you guys have any questions or anything like that, just give me a shout out and I can get back to you guys right away though. And then well, for starting today off, we're starting with FSA, and we're going to do some updates and program overviews with Farm Service Agency, so Natural Conservation Resource Service, and the Risk Management Agency. The first presentation will cover some CRP grassland program with FSA and the Emergency Livestock Relief Program, and then we'll jump into an FSA outreach update. But the first program update will be by FSA, by Shannon and Les. I'll let them give the opportunity for them to introduce themselves.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. My name's Les Rispens. I'm the Farm Program Director and the Acting State Executive Director for the Montana State Farm Service Agency. With me today is Shannon Smiley, who's going to talk to us about ECP and CRP grasslands that she didn't know she was going to talk about because I told her wrong, but we'll get through it. And then I think Amanda Ness and Dee Arneson are here, or Dee Thomas, excuse me, are here, and they're going to talk about livestock programs and the NAP program just briefly. So we'll just briefly touch the emergency programs that we have going on right now is kind of what we're working on. So do you want us to just go ahead and work into our presentation, Zane?
Yes, if you could just jump right into your presentation.
All right, we'll do that. We'll do that in theory. All right, so again, that's who I am. We're going to move through this stuff pretty fast. This is who we are. We are the Farm Service Agency. We implement agricultural policy. Whoop, yep.
I can't see your screen. I can see your video, but not your slideshow.
It's really odd. It shows on mine that it's sharing. All perfect. Let me end the slideshow and start it again. Okay. There's screen 2 is being shared. Let's start the slideshow. Do you have it now?
Oh, not yet.
Huh. I swear this isn't my first Zoom meeting.
Well, Les, maybe one of the other Les Rispens that are on there is doing it, because I count 3 of them. But
I know, but I think those are other people, and I don't know why it's showing up as me. That's really weird. Shoot, I don't know what to do, you guys.
Maybe we could jump into NRCS in the meantime.
Yeah, let's do that. I'll stop sharing here.
Okay.
Oh,
okay.
let me.
That looks like it's open. Yep.
Now I got it. Now do you have it?
Yep. Good now.
I'm sorry.
You're good.
Oh. All right. So that's who I am. This is who we are. We implement ag policy. We administer credit and loan programs and conservation, disaster, and price support programs. USDA has 2,100 service centers in the United States. There are 48 in Montana and 2 part-time tribal offices. Most of our offices are co-located with NRCS. This is a little map of where all of our offices are. If we can help you if you need to find your local office. So these are the farm programs that we run. Is price support programs to support commodity prices, disaster programs, conservation programs, including CRP and CRP grasslands, and compliance and eligibility programs. The specific programs, we're not going to spend a lot of time on all of these, but these are probably programs that you're familiar with. We are going to spend a little more time here. So we're going to start off. Amanda, would you like to talk to us about LIP and LFP and ELAP a little bit?
Sure. So my name is Amanda Ness, and I handle the ARC PLC program, but I also handle all of the livestock disaster programs. And so I understand that you guys were kind of interested in hearing more about our drought programs. And so I'm just going to kind of go through the ones that are going to be most beneficial for drought. We have the livestock forage disaster program, which is one that you're probably familiar with. It's probably the most common. That's a program that is designed to provide benefits to producers who have drought or who have grazing losses due to drought on any of their land or fire on federally managed land. Those disasters have to occur within the county's grazing period. And so basically how we determine if there's a qualifying drought for LFP is just by going off of the drought monitor. So if you have to be in D2 for 8 consecutive weeks or in D3 or D4 for any period of time to trigger a loss under the LFP program. And the payment amount is based on how severe the drought is and how long you're in that specific drought status. You don't have to do anything further to prove that you had a loss under LFP. Basically, once your county meets that drought criteria, you're eligible to go in and apply. A couple of things that you have to have for LFP, you have to have eligible grazing land, which for LFP purposes is non-irrigated grazing acreage. And then you also have to have eligible livestock, which are livestock that are used for commercial use in a farming operation and that are grazing animals. And our most common, of course, are like cattle, sheep, horses, buffalo are all covered under the LFP program. Once you have a qualifying drought under the LFP program, you're also eligible for some assistance under the ELAP program, which is the Emergency Assistance for Livestock, Honeybees, and Farm-Raised Fish. Drought is not covered for a lot of reasons under ELAP, but we do cover feed transportation, water transportation, and livestock transportation to feed due to drought under the ELAP program. We also do cover additional feed purchases for honeybees due to drought under ELAP. ELAP also does cover fire losses on private land for grazing. A couple of things about water and feed transportation, that water and feed do have to be transported to eligible livestock that are grazing or would normally be grazing on eligible land. And the livestock and land eligibility is the same under ELAP and LFP. The feed transportation is new as of 2021. So hopefully you guys were able to participate in that. They did just expand that program to include situations where you need to transport your livestock to feed. Before about 2 weeks ago, we only covered cases where you had to transport the feed to the livestock. So that is something that was retroactive to 2021. So I encourage you to reach out to the county office if that is an expense that you had in 2021. There was also a little bit of additional funding provided to give further assistance to producers who had losses due to drought and fire in 2021 only. This is called the Emergency Livestock Relief Program, which we refer to as ELRP. We are currently in the process of doing phase 1 of that program, and there was no action on behalf of the producer for that. We just took the data that we already had loaded on our approved LFP applications, and we issued a payment to producers based on that data that they had already provided. Basically, you got 75% of your LFP payment as an ELRP payment, or 90% if you certified to being socially disadvantaged, limited resource, beginning or veteran farmer or rancher. There is a second phase of that program where producers will be able to come in and apply for that assistance if they did not have an approved LFP application. So we don't know anything further about that yet, but please do watch the newsletter for additional information on that. And I think that that's all I have to cover as far as drought assistance under our livestock programs.
Perfect. Thanks, Amanda.
Yep.
Shannon, do you want to share ECP with us for a few minutes?
Sure. For this upcoming year, we already have Toole County implementing ECP drought for 2022. The rules have changed slightly, so the payment rates are set at the national level now, but we do get regional rates appropriate for our tri-state region. Folks can be paid 75% of the actual cost, not to exceed that national set limit. Or if you're socially disadvantaged, limited resource, or beginning farmer and rancher, or veteran farmer and rancher, you'll get 90% of what it actually cost, up to that not to exceed rate. It will cover implementing additional water supplies. The title emergency is a bit of a misnomer. Nothing happens quickly. If you do decide to implement temporary practices rather than permanent practices, that process is much faster. But if you do want to put in a well and a buried pipeline and permanent tanks, that can be a several-month-long process for us to get through all of the different reviews and consultations and to the final approval. So that's what we cover. We do, for those areas with lost water sources, there does have to be enough forage available at the time of the application in order to be eligible. And that's that for the ECP program for drought.
All right. Thanks, Shannon. Dee, are you on the call today? Are you one of the less rispens on the call? It doesn't. So the other, just want to make sure Dee's not here. Okay. The other emergency program that we operate is the non-insured crop assistance program, which is NAP. It operates a lot like crop insurance, but it covers crops not typically covered by crop insurance. And so you have to have in order to be eligible under NAP, you have to have an eligible cause of loss. And again, these causes of loss are very similar to what you would experience with crop insurance. You can purchase various coverage levels. So there's the basic level, which is 55%. So 50% yield coverage at 55% price. You have to have a 50% loss to trigger. And that level of coverage is is free to beginning, limited resource, and underserved farmers. The beginning, limited resource, and underserved farmers also get a discount on their buy-up insurance, and you have to pay additional money. You can increase your insurance up to 65% of the yield and 100% of the price coverage. There are some sideboards. You have to have produced the crop for 3 years in order to be eligible for the buy-up insurance. So the first year you insure the crop, you produce the crop would be basic insurance. Once you're into your 3rd year of production, we can let you do buy-up. There are a ton of deadlines in NAP, and there are different reporting wow, I'm really fumbling. Different deadlines for purchasing the coverage, different deadlines for reporting your acres, and for filing your application for payment. So work closely with your office if you want to be involved in the NAP program. This year, almost everybody who had NAP will get a payment for grazing. And so that's a big deal, especially when you don't have to pay anything for the coverage if you're a member of a traditionally underserved group. We already talked about that. And so we're going to just move really quickly through some of these. This is a quick way to find your office, farmers.gov/service-center-locator. That they couldn't have made that much longer, but that'll get you into an application that'll help you find your local office if you don't already know. What you need to get your farm set up is proof of who you are, proof of the land that you control, any leases, that kind of stuff, and information for your corporation or your entity if that's if part of it. Bring all that to your local FSA office. We'll get your farm set up and get your, oops, I thought there was one more slide. And then work with you to get your annual crop report filed. That's probably one of the other real key pieces of working with FSA is that you need to report your crops to us annually to maintain your eligibility for all of the various programs that we run. So it's important to get your farm established and then report your crops. And we'll help you remember those dates. There are a couple of forms we're going to ask you to file to identify your status as one of these groups. And that'll be part of your visit to the FSA office. Want to really encourage everybody to sign up for the FSA newsletters. You can do that by contacting your local office and asking to subscribe, or you can go to fsa.usda.gov/subscribe and get on that newsletter. It's got all of our deadlines and more detailed information about our programs. That's all we had to cover today.
Les,
Nice
did you want me to cover grasslands?
Oh,
just quickly.
I'm sorry, please. Yeah, Shannon, why don't you do that? I'm going to stop my screen share here.
Okay, for our CRP grasslands program, sign up is going on right now. It ends May 13th. The requirements for this program are you have to have already existing grass on the acreage that's being offered. So it can be cropland, it can be non-cropland. It doesn't matter if it's crested wheatgrass or smooth brome or what you've got out there. But it does go through a ranking process nationwide. You get more points if you have native species versus and the number of species that you have in the stand. The ranking process also takes into account socially disadvantaged status. That for grasslands, this is the only program in conservation that considers gender. So if you're a woman, you get additional points if at least 50% of the shares are held by a woman. But that it also includes beginning farmers and other socially disadvantaged groups. Most of the state, the rental rate is $13 an acre. Flathead County is 17. And then down near Yellowstone National Park, we have several counties that are considered the Greater Yellowstone Migratory Corridor, and all those counties get $18 an acre. You can either use the land as working lands and have a grazing plan or a haying plan, or now new this year, you can utilize it for wildlife and just have a wildlife conservation plan, or leave it idle and just control weeds. It has the typical payment limitation for CRP, so you'll be capped at $50,000. Trying to think if I've missed anything there. Can you think of anything, Les?
Nope, I think you got it all, Shannon, at least.
Right.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Les and Amanda, for that presentation. All that vital information is good for the producers. Let them know the dates and when to sign up for. If there's any questions, you can use the Q&A in the bottom there, the toolbar, or you can type it in the chat there. Just let us know if there's any questions. But we'll move on if there isn't too many questions. We'll move on with NRCS and Carrie Bilbo. Are you able to share your screen?
Are you seeing? No, not quite yet. Now are you seeing it?
Yep, it's popping up now.
Okay, and I'm hoping that's the big screen and not no slides on the side. So,
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Zane. So I'm just going to go through some program terminology and a little bit of why it matters. So let's start. Did it move? It did move. Let me click over here. Okay. With a few terminology that I'll tell you that our people suffer with too. So, however, it's some terminology we've really got to change. It's been in place for about 20 years. So it's just something we really need to get away from and getting into the right terminology. So the old terminology, cost share percentage. Our new terminology is a flat rate. So we haven't paid on actual cost and a cost share percentage in, like I said, about 20 years. So it may be longer than that, but we pay on a flat rate. We no longer have a cost share list. It's a payment schedule. So when it's important to remember, it's a payment schedule. And I'll talk more about the payment schedule in just a second. You often also hear the term, or used to hear the term, application deadlines. Well, we don't have an application deadline because we will take an application absolutely at any time. Matter of fact, that's a 24-hour day process because you can even make them online. But application deadline is not a thing. We have batching periods or an application ranking deadlines. We do have to give our staff internally some dates to get through the process for a fiscal year, but we will always take an application. For EQIP, Zane asked that I covered this. The past 2 years, the EQIP, and we're going to say the right words here, batching period or application ranking deadline for the year, that batching period has been the end of October, beginning of November. We have not set that date for fiscal year 23, but if anyone is remotely interested in getting signed up for EQIP or CSP, make that application now. The sooner you make it, the better. But like I said, we do not have an application deadline. You can always make one. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about that payment schedule. So we do not have an authority to have cost share. That's not applicable anymore. Payments mean financial assistance for estimated costs incurred for conservation practices, which sets the stage for making a payment to implement a practice, not reimburse producers based on their individual expenses. Payments made using agency approved rates, the payment schedule, are not over or under payments. So it's just a payment schedule, they're flat rate. Sometimes a producer may be able to put something in a little cheaper than what that payment schedule is, and then they make a little money. That's not an overpayment. Or sometimes it may cost a little more, but just so that's the terminology we need to be using, payment schedule. Let me flip on over one. In our payment schedule are a number of items that are considered cost categories. The cost categories authorized for program payments are materials, equipment, labor, mobilization, and acquisition of technical knowledge. Estimated foregone income may also be used for some conservation practices. For each item in the payment schedule, these items are included. The payment schedule work begins for each fiscal year, begins February to March and will be finalized May to June for the next fiscal year. So we do not have the authority to change that payment schedule whenever we wish. It's a set time period in which payment schedule work can be done. So we can continue working on the items, but after that summer deadline, we're working on the next fiscal year. So right now we're working on fiscal year 23. Like I said, after about summer coming here, that date fluctuates fiscal year to fiscal year, but we'll then be working on fiscal year 24. So those are those cost categories. Let's talk a little bit about some of the other definitions. Historically underserved. You'll often see that with an HU abbreviation. Historically underserved is a combination of 4 categories. That's for each of these. I'm not going to say the farmer and rancher for all of them. As an example, it's socially disadvantaged farmer rancher, then beginning farmer, limited resource farmer, and veteran. So all farmer and rancher, but socially disadvantaged, beginning, limited, and veteran are our categories. Limited resource farmer or rancher. So you can see the definitions here. So with direct or indirect gross farm sales, not more than the current indexed value, who has a total household income at or below the national poverty level. That can be determined by using the USDA limited resource farmer rancher tool. So that website is right there. Beginning farmer. This is really someone who's not filed their Schedule F for their taxes as a producer for 10 consecutive years. And then we'll socially disadvantaged means an individual or entity who is a member of a socially disadvantaged group. Let me flip over here to a socially disadvantaged group. A socially disadvantaged group is a group whose members have been subject to racial or ethnic prejudice because of their identity as members of a group without regard to their individual qualities. So these groups consist of the following categories: American Indians or Alaska Natives, Asians, Black or African Americans, Native Hawaiians or other Pacific Islanders, and Hispanics. Gender alone is not a covered group for the purpose of NRCS conservation programs. So veteran farmer rancher, this is a term. Veteran means exactly the same terminology, I think, all around. So a member means a producer who has served in the United States Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, Coast Guard, has not operated a farmer ranch or has operated a farmer ranch for not more than 10 years, and who first obtained status as a veteran during the most recent 10-year period. So that's just what I wanted to go through. There is just a few of the of some terminology. It's important for there to be an understanding of those historically underserved rates, along with the fact that NRCS now, there's not, cost share is a word that loves to be used, but we paid that way for years and years, but not for a long time. And we need to use our flat rate and our payment schedule. It does change the way business was done from the way it was back when it was cost share. So that's all I have to present. Let me get over here to thought share. And I think I'm done. Zane, I'll turn it back over to you, unless Tom or Kyle had anything they'd like to add to that conversation.
Hey, thanks, Carrie. Zane, give me a couple seconds. I just wanted to share that for those that are joining us, that NRCS has field offices in every county. We have 58 field offices across the state, and we have tribal offices as well. So we have an office in Ronan, in Poplar, at Lame Deer, and in Browning. And we are working on to get offices back on the Fort Belknap Indian community and at Rocky Boy as well. So we hope that as we work through this process, Zane and the Intertribal Ag Council over the course of the year, especially as we focus in on the summer session, that we can provide some additional information about the FY23 programs that we anticipate being offered, as well as Carrie described, when we anticipate our fiscal year 23 batching dates. So I don't have anything else to add. I want to thank Zane for the opportunity, and I'll turn it back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. Yeah, I want to give a shout out to you making time to join today, and Les, the state conservationist for NRCS, Tom Watson, and then Les for FSA. Thank you for joining today. And well, if you guys have any questions for Carrie, thanks Carrie for all the information. Make sure you just drop in the chat or the Q&A. But in the meantime, I did misspoke earlier. We do have another presenter for FSA. Jennifer Perez Cole is FSA's National Tribal Outreach Lead, and she has an update for the outreach update.
Thank you. Thank you, Zane, and thank you, IAC, for hosting this webinar with USDA. And thank you, Montana FSA, NRCS, and RMA for your presentations. I have an update from the National Outreach Office. I've been in this position since November. Previously, I worked in Montana FSA for 11 years. My new role within Farm Service Agency is located under the Office of Administrator Zach Dushno. I'm from Fort Belknap, Montana, and I'm a member of the Nakota Assiniboine tribe. And I'm also a cattle operator, and I understand how important these programs are to your operations, especially with the drought conditions that we're experiencing. This month, the USDA Office of Tribal Relations hosted 2 tribal consultation sessions. April 6th session was specific to Montana Farm Service Agency and NRCS. April 14th was a nationwide consultation. We had more than 250 attendees at that session, and we received great feedback from Montana tribal leaders and farmers and ranchers who served as tribal leader proxies. The USDA tribal consultation written comments are still being accepted until May 2nd, and those can be emailed to tribal.relations@usda.gov, and I will drop that in the chat. The next step for Farm Service Agency is moving forward with implementing our tribal action plan through policy, education, and education, or policy, outreach, and education. The Outreach and Administrator's Office will continue to take feedback on any issues or barriers that you experience at the local level, or policy, things that affect tribal specific producers. And you can email those to me at jennifer.cole@usda.gov, and I'll add my contact information in the chat. And that's really all I had for you today, but I did want to thank you for your invitation to this meeting and for the outreach and technical assistance that Intertribal Ag Council is doing in Montana and across the United States. We appreciate your good work and your partnership. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you for all the things you do for our national tribal outreach. The next presenter will be Jeremy NotAfraid with Risk Management Agency. He's a risk management specialist, and he'll be covering some program overview of the Livestock Risk Protection Program.
I don't know if you guys can see my my screen there.
Almost, yep, now it can.
Okay, yeah, I'm Jeremy NotAfraid. I work with the with RMA, which is a sister agency with FSA and NRCS within USDA. I work in the Billings Regional Office, and today I'm going to cover a policy that we have available for livestock producers in our region. It's called Livestock Risk Protection. We'll see if I can get this to change screens or not. There we go. This first slide just says anything that I covered today doesn't supersede any of the actuarial documents or approved procedures that are currently out there. So livestock risk protection, what it is, it's a product that is currently sold through our partners who are the actual insurance companies that are out there. At RMA, what we do is we actually supervise our federal crop insurance program, and our partners in that are the approved insurance providers around the country. With RMA, we don't have an office in every county, within every state like NRCS or FSA does, but it's our partners with those approved insurance providers who are actually out there selling you the products. So this is one policy that livestock producers within Montana should really be looking at right now. It's LRP, Livestock Risk Protection, and what it does, it's designed to insure against the declining market prices that might be out there. It allows a producer to insure against a downward price movement on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, the CME. It's not tied to any price that producer receives at the market. So if a guy sells his calves in the fall at Billings or Lewistown or Great Falls, that price does not matter. It's the price that's actually on the CME. There's different varieties of coverage that a producer can choose from. And what it basically is a producer can actually lock in his price for his livestock for that price in the fall with this product. His livestock can still be marketed, but they could also be retained in the fall. It's not a multi-peril product. It's not a multi-peril policy. So it doesn't insure against light calves that come in the fall or any kind of a death loss or anything like that. It's only against the price for your livestock on the CME. So again, the basics are just that you're locking in your price for your livestock in the CME, and it's supposed to protect you for those market fluctuations that happen for your livestock. Some good changes that came about this last year for this policy is that the premium can be paid at the first day of the month following the end of the insurance period. The end of that insurance period is at the end of the year, usually when you annually market your livestock. So if you usually plan to sell end of October, you'll buy that endorsement. That's either the end of October or 1st of November. And then your premium will be due the first day of the month following that. So that's been a good change. In the past, producers had to buy it in the front end of the policy, but now they can wait till the end when they actually sell their livestock. Another good change that came about in 2021 is that we can cover unborn animals now, as long as you have pregnancy check records or proof that you've sold those livestock one of the last 3 years. So for an example for that is if a guy doesn't start, let's say he doesn't start calving till the 1st of April, he could actually have bought this policy in January and February, as long as he had those records and could have locked in at those prices back then. One thing that got added was that producers now have 60 days to market their livestock at the end of that insurance period. So kind of the caveat on that is, let's just say you do usually plan to market at the end of October, but you maybe in the meantime, you sell them on Superior in, let's say September, or you have a contract order buyer that buys in September. As long as if you're within that 60-day time period, you're all right, and the policy is valid. Probably the biggest increase or biggest change we came with is with the increased subsidies that came about for 2021. Historically, that's been a 13% subsidy. What that is FCIC, the Federal Crop Insurance, actually provides a premium subsidy for you. And in the past, it was only at 13%. So they didn't pay a whole lot of the premium. So it was a lot of guys didn't take advantage of it, I guess. But with 2021, those premiums increased, and you can see the corresponding coverage levels, how they go from 35% premium subsidy all the way up to 55%. So it made it a lot more attractive for livestock producers to actually buy this policy. This is just a screenshot of our website. There's actually tools on here that'll help a guy if he goes to our website, rma.usda.gov, to look at what the policy, what the prices are for that policy, what price that a guy could actually lock in his calves at, basically. And I'll kind of put this out there. I'll put my contact information in the chat. So if anybody's on there, if they watch the recording of this later on, you can contact me, and I'll sit down with the producer, and we can work through some of these tools online together at the same time, and I'll kind of help a guy walk through some of the scenarios if he does decide on possibly purchasing this product. If you see on the left hand of the screen, there's a tab that says Agent Locator. You could click on that and actually just put in your zip code, and you'll be able to find an agent, a local crop insurance agent where you could actually buy this policy. So if you do visit our website, this is the screen that will show up. If you click the drop down that says Tools, you can just click on that drop down, and that screen will come up, and then you'll choose Livestock Reports. And this is where we can actually start using some of these tools, where we can find what those actual ending values could be, or what their projected ending values would be for the Chicago Mercantile Exchange. And if you do want to buy that policy, what that premium would be for you. So if you do go to this screen, you click on the LRP coverage prices. Again, you'll get moved to a different screen. You can choose that top one as well, LRP coverage prices. And it'll finally get you to here. You can choose the effective date. I chose this. I pulled this off yesterday afternoon, so that effective date was yesterday. And you can just work through here, choose Montana. For a cow-calf guy, it would be feeder cattle. And then for the type, I just chose unborn steers and heifers, but there's also steers if they're already on the ground, or your heifers. You could actually buy a policy if you're halfway calved out, if you have a good number on how many steers and how many heifers you have, and how many cows are yet to calve, you could actually have a policy for all three of those. So once you do choose those, you could hit create report there. And this screen shows up. It looks a little scary, but I actually highlighted about 5 columns there, the 5 important columns to look at. So this is from yesterday for these unborn calves, and the end date is the end of July. So if you ended up marketing your calves at the end of July, The expected ending value for those steers and heifers is $1.80 a pound, which is a pretty good price. If you bought the highest coverage level at 99%, as you can see on the top line, you'd actually be locking in yourself at $1.78 a pound, which for your steers and heifers is a middle point between both of them, would be a pretty good price. I have 3 examples at the end here, which will pull this all together so you might have a better understanding of it. But if you do pull this screen up, you can just look at the end date, and that's usually the day that you plan on marketing your cattle. And then if you go down to the coverage level line, you can see which coverage level you would want to lock yourself in at, and then the coverage price that you would buy the policy for. So here's the start of 3 examples that I have. This first one is from 2016. This is when the premium subsidy was only 13%. This is for a rancher that had 100 head of steers that averaged 550 pounds. The expected ending value on May 2nd when he bought the policy was $1.53. So he bought it at the highest coverage level possible. So he locked himself in at $1.52, and he was planning on selling on the end of October. Well, the way 2016 ran out, the actual ending value on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange was $1.37. He might have gotten a higher price for that when he actually sold them, but the CME price that day was $1.37. So when he purchased his policy, he had to pay $43 a head for that, which was pretty pricey. The subsidy was not very high. But in the end, he was made whole because the price came in lower from what he locked in at. So he got a net payment of about $38 a head for that policy, because there was indemnity paid because the price he locked in at was higher than what the ending value was for that year. So what happened last year? This same guy bought this policy last year. He bought it on June 1st for that same 100 head of steers. He was going to pull his calves off earlier the end of September because he wanted those cows a little more time to come back. So the expected ending value on June 1st was $1.67, and he locked himself in at a 98% coverage level. So it came out to almost $1.65 a pound, which he was happy about. So he paid $26 a head to buy that policy, and it came out with a 35% subsidy rate, that's why it was quite a bit lower and quite a bit more affordable for him to buy the policy. Well, when he marketed his calves at the end of September, which again could have been in Billings or wherever, the price on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange was $1.70. So it was higher than what he locked himself in at. So in that case, there was no indemnity paid, but it acted as a safety net. He went through the whole summer and he knew he was at least going to get $1.65. So he had that ease of mind. The bank was happy with it. He ended up paying his premium, but with no indemnity. So there's 2 situations where the policy actually paid an indemnity, but this example from last year, it didn't. So what's going on this year with all of the market fluctuations and maybe some of the higher feed costs that we're looking at? Here's an example, and I used the new version of it for unborn livestock. In this example, this rancher doesn't start calving until the middle of April, but he bought that policy on April 4th, and he's planning to market those calves in the end of October. He just chose 100 head of cows to buy this for. They still average 550 a pound. He was able to, the expected ending value at the end of October for these unborn livestock was $1.88, and he locked himself in at a 94% coverage level at $1.77. So he guaranteed himself on these calves that he's going to get $1.77 for the steers and heifers combined for that 100 head. The premium is going to be $20 a head with a 40% subsidy rate, which is, that's comparable to a lot of our crop programs, our crop products, I should say. So for $2,000, he bought that ease of mind where, who knows what's going to happen with all the feed prices, with the higher wheat and corn prices that's happening. Who knows what those feeder prices are going to be this fall. But he locked himself in at $1.77 with that $20 per head premium. So that's an example from this year. So that's what I have for LRP. There's my contact information. I'll put it in the chat. So if there's any producers, again, online with us today, or if they later watch this video on IAC's website or YouTube channel, wherever it's posted, I will be available if you guys want to go through an example on your operation, and we can kind of work through some of the numbers together. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. If there's some more questions for Jeremy, don't forget to drop it in the chat here or use the Q&A process at the bottom there. Like I said before, thank you to all the participants and all the panelists on today's call. Thank you, Jeremy and Les, Tom, and Amanda, Carrie. Thank you for presenting all this vital information for the producers on the ground. Like I said, again, we'll do this again here this summer, just to give you some more program overviews and some more updates as the year goes on and proceeds. But you have my contact information in the chat, so please take that information. And if you ever want to get in contact with any of the panelists today, if you're having a hard time getting in contact with them, shoot me an email or give me a call on my cell, and I can get you the contact for that person. But thank you for today's participation, and I'll see you guys for the next one. Thanks, guys.